So self-esteem in put in easier words, I think you all got it right. The way we say it and the way we want to justify it is, what do you say to yourself about yourself? Which is very different from how you portray yourself to be, how you let other people know you, which is also very different from what others say about you. So let me say this again. So self-esteem is something which you say to yourself about yourself. Something which is yours, there's nothing to hide, and you are saying to yourself about yourself, which is very distinct from what others say to you about you and how you portray yourself with others. That is exactly what self-esteem is. What is the role of self-esteem? Like, what do we think self-esteem does? So let's look at self-esteem. If I put it in a single liner, it gives you your self-worth, what you say to yourself about yourself, and the strength to do something, to get into something with belief, with your own self-belief. So if you really look at it, how we normally see children around and ourselves around, and I'll move into that, why are we talking about self-esteem so much? People normally talk about performance, self-confidence, and we are right now today talking about the importance of self-esteem. It's like whenever we see a performance, for example, of a person going down, of any child, even yourself, we are always bothered that if the performance goes down, the self-confidence of that person for that particular activity will go down. And if you really look at your own classrooms, for example, if you see somebody performing less in, say this performance level in for mathematics is less, you will observe that the confidence level of that child has gone down. And we are always worried that once the self-confidence is that level of that child will go down, it will start impacting the self-esteem of any child. That's how we've always believed. Okay, if you really look at yourself, how we grew up, how we are working with the children in our schools, or if you are parents working with your own children, we are somehow trying to make sure that the performance doesn't go down, and we focus on their performance. Send them to tuitions, give them some coaching, put in your own effort. If a child is not performing well, we will start supporting that child. We take leaves for children in their examinations or their competitions, so that support is provided so that their performance doesn't go down. Because ultimately, the performance is going to impact the confidence, and that confidence will impact his or her self-esteem. But one thing, let me unravel for you today, which right now, as I say it, may sound counterintuitive, which I had shared earlier in the first session also, that most of our work is counterintuitive. Parwarish believes in breaking myths, and one of the myths is that performance, self-confidence, and self-esteem are related in this manner. Actually, what happens is this. If I say, for example, I'm not good enough, what will happen to my confidence? Obviously, the confidence will go down, and I won't say I can't do it. And if I get into any work by saying I can't do it, what do you think will happen to the performance? It will be impacted negatively. So, friends, we normally see that the performance, and how we have believed all our lives, is that performance leads to lower self-confidence, leads to lower self-esteem. But in reality, it happens the other way around. If I say to myself that I can do it, I'm capable enough, my confidence level goes up. And once I enter into any activity with high confidence, my performance would ultimately go up. Okay, that each one of us was born with all the power, with our self-esteem being right there. When we were 2.5, 3 year olds and we were asked, "Ye kar sakta hai, can you do this?" Our answer to that person more often than not was yes. And if you really look at children again, as I was talking about at the start of the session, if you ask them, "Can you drive?" they'll say yes. If you say, "Can you swim?" they'll say yes. If you say, "Khana bana sakta hai," they'll say yes. They want to eat on their own. They want to do everything on their own. That they believe that everything is possible and they can do anything. So what happens in reality? Whenever we start something new, something we haven't done before, and we are not able to do it. So, for example, if we see our own performance or somebody else's performance or a student's performance go down, two things happen. There is something which people around us say, and then there is something we say to ourselves. What do people around us can say? So, people around us can say, "You can't, leave it." And people around us can also say, "You can." And I can say to myself, "I can." So, I have two options. I can, I can't. People around us have two options. You can't, you can. So let's first see what happens if people around us say you can't and you say to yourself, "I can't." And my request would be, as we're going through this, if you can pick up a real life incident for yourself, something you tried, something you picked up, and you couldn't do it, you failed at it. And people around you, could be your parents, could be your teachers, could be those significant adults around you in your life, said you can't. Could be a subject, could be an activity, could be a sport, could be speaking out in public, could be doing those extempos or debates. And they said to you, "You can't." And once you heard them, because they were significant people in your life, could be your father, mother, teachers, you also said to yourself, when they are saying "I can't," then I can't. Which would have led to you saying to yourself that "I can't" in that particular area of your life, and your self-esteem in that area of your life got dented. I was teaching my child, my son, to ride a bicycle, and I used to work in a corporate, and time was very, very short. So I used to ask him to ride it while I used to drop him to the bus stop, and I used to just pull the bicycle back after dropping it at the bus stop. And one of the days he fell, and I shouted at him, "Here, what have you done? Tere bus ka nahi hai, you won't be able to do it. You spoiled your entire dress, and now the bus is you will miss the bus, so just chuck the cycle and come with me." uh, After this incident, that kid didn't pick up the bicycle for 2 years, until in one of these sessions I suddenly realized that what I had done, and went back to him, apologized for that incident after 2 years of it. So I kept buying him new bikes, but it didn't work, and it didn't work for 2 long years. What can happen the other way around is this. The other thing is people around us saying "you can," and you saying to yourself "I can." What happens in that case is your self-esteem doesn't get dented at that level. It actually increases, and you start believing in yourself that "I can." Now, as I'm saying that, see where all, and I'm sure there will be areas in your life where somebody else in your life, even after you failing at something or not scoring well or whatever it was, which you call that there was a performance dip or you didn't do well, the person around you, again, your parents, your teachers, said "you can." And look at two angles for yourself. Okay, one where you were still saying "I can't," but the person around you said "you can," and I'm with you. And by the way, one thing you all have gone through, when we were trying to learn to walk, we all fell. A lot of us would have hurt ourselves badly. A few of you could have fallen on your bums, could have you fallen on your face. That really hurt. And I'm sure most of us at that point of time, because I remember my child was saying, yeah, it feels difficult to get up again. But because our parents at that point of time are either celebrating or clapping, that we actually get up, even after saying that I can't, but we really do that. Our entire writing experience, how do we learn writing? I think it took 3, 4, 5 years before any one of us actually could write. It's only our teachers and parents who were clear that we are going to write. We would have given it up so easily so many times. It used to hurt our hand. We never used to get our pencil right. Then the spellings were another game. But our parents at that point of time said, you will write because writing is normal. Everybody writes, so you will also write. And their support made us do exactly what we thought we can't do. What really happens is when our performance goes down, and if you really see, if we do something for the very first time, working out in the gym, yeah. Right. So coming to this, when performance goes down, and more often than not, when you're doing something new, it could be riding a bicycle, to learning how to drive a car, to painting, to anything, to cooking. More often than not, our performance will be dipping. And there are two things which happen around in our environment. One, people around us saying you can or you can't. And we saying to ourselves we can and can't. Now, if people around us say you can't, we again have two options. We can say I can't and I can. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of examples in your life where people around in your life would have said you can't. But you kept saying to yourself, I can. And you actually did it. So what ultimately matters is what you say to yourself about yourself. It definitely gets supported by people around us, specifically in an age when we are children, specifically in an age when we so believe our teachers and parents. They have a huge impact on what we say to ourselves about ourselves. And why I'm having this talk again with you guys is that the kind of access you have with the children and the level of children you have in terms of their socio-economic status, you have a huge capacity to make an unbelievable magical difference in their life. Like if you guys can tell them that they can, just purely because you say that they can, it will be a huge boost, a huge environment for them to start saying to themselves that they can. And if that happens, their self-esteem will never get dented. Yes, it is a superpower. We teachers and parents have this gift of God that what you say, children start believing in. I'll give you a very small, it could be a very stupid example. Each one of you has a name, right? And you respond to that name all the time. Why do you have that name? Why you called Kriti, or why you called Vidyut or Suhani or Sushant or Kruti or Meghna or whoever, or Ekta or Suhani? Because your parents said this is who you are. And from that day onwards, that is who you became. Now, as parents and teachers, that's the power each one of you has. And if you really look in your own life, and I'm sure each one of you, including me, had somebody or the other, maybe one person, who had that faith or still has that faith in ourselves, in you, that you can. And once that person says you can, you start believing that you can. And whatever you're struggling with starts to happen. Just doesn't work even just for children, but people around who you start trusting and believing in, who are your environment. So if we start saying to people, you can, their self-esteem goes up. And once the self-esteem goes up, their performance, their confidence of doing it goes up. And once the confidence goes up, their level of performance automatically starts showing up. So coming back and joining with what we had done last month is that if I say to myself that I am a no limit person, and that's how each one of you, each one of us was born, then you start everything that I can. And if you start getting into a thing with saying I can, your performance is bound to get impacted. Is that this whole concept of the centerpiece, which we say performance leads to self-confidence, leads to self-esteem, actually doesn't work. That's not the way life works. That's a myth. How it really works is you feeling great about yourself, saying to yourself that I can, which brings up your confidence levels. And once that confidence level and your belief goes up, your performance, your abilities automatically improve. Ability of doing anything, okay, anything, so is dependent on your capacity, which over the last session and today's session we're talking about that each one of us is born no limit. So this capacity is unlimited. This capacity of a human being to do whatever they want to do is unlimited. So the game is all about exposure. Bringing it back again, normally what happens is when we see a child doing badly at something, if you see more often than not, we also, one, we put a dent on their self-esteem that you can't. And the second thing, we start lowering their exposure. So for example, we start providing them help. Second, we may even take off those subjects. If a child is not doing well in, say, for example, running, we'll say, you stop running. Now, if I stop running and if I stop practicing running, how can I build my stamina in running? So there's a child who's good at running and there's a child who's slow at running. We take the guy who's slow at running away and say, tu mat bhag, tere bas ka nahi hai. So two things happen. One, his self-esteem is dented. His own self-belief that I can run well is gone down. And second, we take him out of running. And if I take him out of running, how do you think that person will build the stamina or the pace to run? So in this case, if I ask you, if somebody is not able to run well, does he or she need more exposure to run or less? But if you really see what we normally do, and somebody, I don't remember the name, but somebody shared that you don't bicycle. So when you fell from the bicycle a few times, people around you said, tu chhod de, stop doing it. Now, if you stop doing it, then you will never learn. So if you see anybody failing at something, performance going down or not able to do it right now, what's your job? To increase the exposure or to reduce the exposure? Increase it, right? So sure, there could be competitions, okay? There could be competitions that you can't send those child for those competitions outside your school because it matters. Sure, do that. I'm not saying send the worst guy. But can we keep building those people also to have even more exposure so that they can build those muscles for themselves? So if you remember this small thing, which is just on screen right now, your current ability to do anything is purely a factor of your capacity, which is unlimited. And if people around you can keep saying that you have unlimited capacity and you are capable of everything and anything, you are no limit, then that stays intact. And if you keep providing more exposure, let the child do exactly what he's not able to do right now, and let them get more and more and more and more exposure, things is going to shift. So a child may take 10 rides to learn how to bicycle, another child can take 500. And if you don't provide those 500 opportunities for that child will never learn how to bicycle. So the first step to do is identify the labels. And as I said last time, that if you can do this exercise for yourself at a start every week, and then maybe increase the gap, identify your own labels, identify the labels of the children you're working with. Then remove those labels. Identify that who the person is, this is the person, and these are the labels. Right now, we see the person and the labels as one. They're intertwined. They're one. This whole exercise is for you to distinguish the person from his labels. Like you can see the person and his clothes. And the minute you take away soiled clothes and you put in a suit, you look better. You take off a suit and you put in a cricket jersey, you will become a cricketer. So whatever label you will put, the person will start doing like that. And this power is with you. So start identifying those labels, start and distinguishing the person from the labels. And the best would be once you remove those labels, label each one of yourself and each one of those child as no limit. That they can do it and they have the power to do anything. And the next part would be start practicing to label the act. So I can be lazy at times, but that is what I'm being lazy. I am not lazy. I can be stupid at times. I am not stupid. I'm behaving stupid. I can be very caring. I can care for people. So I am not caring, but I am behaving caring. And there are times when I'll be careless. There'll be times when I'll be lazy. There'll be times I can be short-tempered. I am not short-tempered. I'm being short-tempered at those times. If you practice labeling the act, this whole thing becomes easier. Because that's exactly what is happening. We are labeling the person based on the act. And if we can keep distinguishing that, it'll be a great thing for us, a great thing for our relationship with that person, and something phenomenal for that person himself. And I'll add to this, keep the exposure on. Everybody has a different learning curve. Everybody learns at their own pace. Everybody acquires different skills at their own pace. So people had shared that they couldn't speak up loud in school, but right now they can. So it took you time to learn that skill. And the more exposure you got is what brought it up. So keep the exposure on. Remember, there are 40, 50 children in your classrooms. Everybody will pick up the same stuff at a very different level. One way could be you can blame the education system that we all teach all the children same thing together, which really doesn't work, but that's how it is. But if we give them enough exposure and if we keep telling them they can, they definitely will. So in our belief system and what we've worked with the last 10 years with children and parents and teachers, who you are is somebody who's no limit, somebody who's capable of anything and everything. And yes, who can have all the traits, can have all the skills, can develop all the skills. So if you really make a list of what all can you do, and also make a list of what do you think you can learn, I'm sure there is nothing which will not be there, what you can't learn. So who you are is what you say you are. If you say you're no limit and you want to pick up something and do something, I can bet you will be able to do it. So अगर आपने अपने ऊपर एक लेबल लगा लिया कि मैं X कर सकता हूँ, तो फिर आप वो बन गए. अगर आपने बोला Y कर सकते हो, फिर आप वो बन गए. To take an analogy, it's like water. You put blue color in it, you become blue, and you put red in it, and you become red. Who you actually are is unlimited potential. If you really see and observe children around, not sorry children, but people who are out there after becoming students of coming out from the same system, same education system, if you differentiate between who's done well, and I'm saying the definition of well is your own definition, the difference in a person. So if you look around in your own classes, in when you were students, in your own peer groups, you will find that people who had better marks than you, performed better than you, at this point of time in their life, a few of them would be doing better than you, and I'm sure there'll be a few who are not doing as good as you are. And if you look at your colleagues and peers who got less marks than you, whose performance was lesser than yours, even those will be there who are better than you in life right now, and they will be on the other side also. So what I wanted to say here is that your academic performance, your marks, have no relationship with how well your life goes or how well you do in your life. You will find all kind of people with great marks, less marks, doing well, doing worse. But you will find one thing: people with high self-esteem. If you really go and see people who have done well in their life and compare with people who have not done well in life, you will see this difference that the people who have done well in life have much higher self-esteem. People who have belief in themselves have really done well. And that definition of well, I will leave it to you. It could be spiritually, it could be financially, it could be academically, anywhere. So yes, our system judges them, sure. If we start doing a judgment on something else, there has to be a judgment. There has to be some way of measuring. I'm not even saying that whatever measuring system we have today is the best. It's not. It should be changed yesterday, sure. But even in this education system, if we as educators start focusing on things which really matter, the things which really make a difference, we can do that. So the lens is how much a child trusts in himself, believes in himself that he can. If we start focusing on that, you will always see that the performance of that person is also go up. Which strategy? It's very simple, Manjusha. List all the labels out. More often than not, for a lot of people, it would appear that they are not labels at all. There would be a lot of labels which we have on ourselves, which we don't even see as labels, because it's like become second skin. But you can trust me on this one. Even that's removable. Even that's a label. You can remove that too. So whatever word, whatever trait we use to describe a person is ultimately a label. Some could be very easy to peel off. Some will take a lot of time to peel off. But the exercise is very simple. List them down and start identifying that this is you, this is the person, this is the child, and these are labels. And start removing them. It would take time, but it's like if you keep peeling off a post-it, keep putting it back, peeling off a post-it, keep putting back it. After a while, it loses its stickiness. This is exactly what happens to these labels. There's no strategy there. It's very simple. Identify them and throw them out. And do that as regularly as possible. And start saying to yourself that I'm no limit. And start saying to that child that you are no limit. If you go It's an amazing question, by the way. So you're trying to trick me into it, but not a problem. If you really go to the history of human beings and evolution of human beings, one of the theories says that all living organisms were underwater earlier. The first fish which came out and tried to walk, and then tried to walk again, and that tried to walk again, then the life on earth which was outside of water started. It's not my cooked up story. This is exactly one of the evolution theories. Check it out. So from that perspective, the fish can also walk. And if the fish can walk, then it can also climb a tree. Climb a tree. Sorry, simple but not easy. Okay. So when I said simple, it's not easy. This is going to take a lot of time, because if you really look at it, our self-esteem is not just built over years. If you're working with women, and specifically when you're talking about Rajasthan, what it brings into my head is that Rajasthan has had a history of how women are treated in their society. So what these women are carrying is not just labels of their particular life, the years they have lived. They're carrying labels of a few hundred years maybe. How their community is looked at, how they are treated, how they think they can do it. So it's not just these labels are not going to be easy. So again, my request would be, rather than anything else, like working on anything else, training them, coaching them, convincing them, counseling them, work on purely building the two-letter word, two words, which is said, I can. We can start with smaller stuff. Whatever they think they can't right now, could be any small stuff, okay? Pick that up. Pick up some stuff which they currently think they can't, and get them to do it. I'm not sure how much space is there to get them to do something physical, but getting them to do something which they currently believe they can't, which could be outside of teaching, which could be outside of their current role. If you start putting in a few elements of things which they currently say they can't, and then you make them do it, and they see to themselves that they can do it, you can prove it that they, if required, will be able to do everything and anything in their life. So build in small exercises. You'll have to think of it. Maybe we can talk offline and see what small things you can do to start proving to them that they can. Don't use this exercise to build their self-esteem. That you could do it. Now you can do this also. Use this exercise to prove it to them that they are capable of everything. And they start using I can in their day-to-day life for themselves. Once that starts to shift, you will see a huge difference in whatever they're doing in life. Building that whole belief that I can will work wonders for them. And not just in the school, if you ask me, that will make a huge difference in their society. That will make a huge difference in their life